You're live. Good morning.
Hello. Morning, everybody. How are you, David?
I'm feeling refreshed, revigorated, ready to go.
Doesn't sound it. Your words don't match your.
One second. Let me just get a bit more enthusiastic because this week, the Kerfuffle Podcast is brought to you by View Agents.
That's a lovely voice. That's very Chris England.
The Kerfuffle Podcast, brought to you by View Agents, the reputation expert.
You know what you should do, Mintzy? You should be on stage at an upcoming event.
The Women in Estate Agency Conference, brought to you by the Kerfuffle Podcast.
Still not bitter. I'm very happy for you. I'll be there to support you.
Good morning.
Hey,
That
Chris,
was
a
little bit of bounce there. But the bounce is significant because you made a big announcement in the press about View Agents.
Yeah, I wonder which press story you were talking about there. Yeah, exactly right. No, really pleased.
The Kerfuffle Podcast, brought to you by View Agents. What does it mean for us now?
Okay, exactly right. What does it mean for us and what does it mean for the industry? So really, really pleased, David. We've been working on it, as you know, for some time. And I think the key to talk about it is, what is View Agents about? There's lots of brilliant review platforms out there. You've got in the industry, you've obviously got the likes of the Esters. There's All Agents, many agents use. There's the Gorillas, there's the Googles, the Facebooks, the Trustpilots. There's a few aggregators as well that kind of bring it together, people like Trustis and things like that. But I really believe that this tool, View Agents, does all of those things. But actually, the key thing for me is it's bringing benchmarking and the ability to compare yourself to it. So in my head, as you know, Simple Simon is what I'm about, is in the way that those brilliant tools out there in terms of your Spriff, Spectres, 20 EAs, all of those fantastic tools do around, obviously, your property stats. This is doing it about the just as important area around your reviews and reputation, and to give you that ability to actually contrast and control and indeed manage it effectively. So really, really pleased with it. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Get people's feedback. Would love to know what you guys find frustrating about the whole area of reviews at the moment. And I think what I'd like to talk to you about, David, because you obviously spoke about this at the Negotiator Conference, just to touch on a few of the points that you raised there, because you did it in your normal fashion, didn't you? I think it was fair to say.
I did, but I don't think I can do it in my normal fashion on the podcast, but I'll give it a go.
Okay.
We'll get as close as we possibly can.
Because it was the most important talk of the day. Again, not bitter, because you closed off the conference, didn't you?
So I suppose what gives me a little bit of, what's the word? Pep me up a bit. I was a bit upset that it left me to the end of the day, but all three of the people that stayed behind to watch it came up to me afterwards to say, had I been the first talk of the day, they still would have walked out. And it was lovely.
That is good.
Now, I think actually, if I can just speak for some of the agents that I think are even watching this now, and they can chime in and agree with me. But that last session of the day, actually, where we were there talking about reputation, and then there was, I think they had Home Flow there looking at impact of the website. And then in the middle, you had that kind of Brief Your Market crowd there talking about mystery shopping as well.
Yeah.
And really, that was probably the most hands-on session of the day when it comes to actually talking to agents and dealing with real case studies from the agencies. And I think that the crowd found that most interesting.
I couldn't agree with you more, because I think, some of the other ones, they were great speakers, but actually everybody in that last session tied together, didn't they, in terms of this is how you benchmark, this is about customer service, customer satisfaction, how well your website does and everything. And clearly, the thing I love about reviews is, as anyone will see me on a subject where, let's be honest, I'm not passionate about, when I get my cold, dead eyes, who can't be passionate about reviews and the way that you're seen by your clients? It's just not a niche area, is it? You can talk about, Watkins can talk about the pie charts and how the public don't get it. Yeah, you know what? They don't get voids. they don't get listings, they don't get exchanges. You know, that whole side of things is very easy for the public to miss out on. What they get is they understand the power of a 5-star review. And that's why, again, I think this is so important.
I think they do. And I think even before we get into this, I think if you think about booking your next holiday, when you go, I mean, these days you don't need to leave your house to book a holiday. You don't need to speak to a travel agent. You could go on any multitude of sites that will tell you that that hotel is amazing and the photos look amazing and it's all blue skies and pools and all that sort of stuff. But in actual fact, if you want to know what other people are saying about it, you will inevitably go down that TripAdvisor rabbit hole of the reviews. And that's how many of us now book our holidays, because you have that the choice there is so huge. So how do you narrow it down?
So can I just ask you just a quick question? Obviously, we always like to contrast me from supplier world, you from agency world. In the past, how did you use reviews? You know, did you deviate? Did you obviously, you can't ignore Google, can you? Because obviously that's the SEO powerhouse, and it's where.
So in the bad old days, so I'll tell you, in the bad old days, our feeling was that Facebook it used to be a forum for anybody to leave mostly dog shit reviews on agents as retaliatory measures. So there was, because Facebook back then didn't require you necessarily to qualify who you were, whether or not you'd actually transacted with the company. So if you were a tenant, an angry tenant, if you were a competitor, an angry competitor, and you were feeling a little bit vindictive, or an ex-wife, you could just get on there and destroy a business. So, and we also felt, rightly or wrongly, and this is, like I say, this advice is dated by about 7 or 8 years, that Facebook wasn't reliable as a source of review. So it wasn't naturally, you didn't wake up in the morning and go, oh, today I'm going to buy a holiday. I need to go on Facebook and see what Karen from down the road is saying about this place. So back then, that wasn't the way. Google similarly allowed you, as long as you had an email address or a Gmail address, you could leave a review for pretty much anybody. And the thing that we hated about Google was very often you get a review, and even if it wasn't a genuine review, you can't just pick up the phone to somebody at Google and go, is that the review department? Could you look at this for me? And literally, because it's such a huge conglomerate, it's this faceless entity where I was sending sort of semi-legal letters into the vacuum of cyberspace going, if you don't come back to me within the next hour, I'll have my lawyers look at it. And that was very, very frustrating. And for a business, every second where you've got a negative review out there that another member of the public can see,
and your competitors can use against you, of course. That time matters, doesn't it?
Correct. I think that matters. So we took the route, as a lot of agents did, of going to a specialist review platform. And back in the day, we chose Trustpilot because it had trust in the title. That was it. We didn't know too much about the platform. And it was pre the days where all the purple brick stories started coming out about that particular platform. So, agents they had choice, but they didn't have anybody that understood agency, which I think is probably the key to all of this.
It is. And what you've just highlighted there, of course, is to look at, again, one of the key USPs around what View Agents has done is, it doesn't really matter what your preference is. Most agents use one or two platforms or anyone else. And of course, as we said, yes, Google will be over half of those. But if you're then ignoring all the other ones, you're almost missing half of the way the public is viewing you online. And you can't just ignore that, can you? Especially when it's so hard to, as you said there, keep on top of where those reviews are all coming in from. So this aggregation service that View Agents does, so that you can literally, you can manage what you can measure finally, is vitally important, isn't it?
Here is a really well-timed comment by Christian. When we were targeted last year, I was worried our online and review reputation would be in tatters for months or even years. Thankfully, Google removed them all with relative ease, but it took time. It takes time. It takes time. And had he not been on the case, let's say you just go to sleep on it for 48 hours, you wake up to a dumpster fire of reputation, and those reviews, you need to have them removed ASAP. But we can talk all about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think, and what's interesting about Christian's whole one there, and they really were targeted in the most vicious style and everything else. But let's just say it wasn't, that concerted effort that obviously needed to come down there. Agents, by definition, especially living in Christian's world, although he's obviously exceptional at reviews, as he shows with his Esters all the time there, is the lettings agent. Many agents separate their sales and lettings departments away because it's obviously so toxic often with the tenants blaming the agent for things that are completely out of their control, hitting the landlord and everything else there. And so that ability, I am a bugger for going on review sites when I'm thinking about buying stuff, and I go straight for the negative ones. And of course, it's kind of nice to see the Basil Fawlty kind of approach there, what people reply is. But what I'm looking for is how the business is actually responding to the reviews as much as I am reading the reviews themselves. And I think this is probably one of the biggest open goals that the best agents have. It's just, I think from our last stats, we were seeing that just over 30% of agents were replying to reviews. But here's the thing, over half of those are just those boring templated thank you, that means a lot, or taking them down the customer satisfaction route. I think what we love about this is that we encourage via review agents the ability to get notified of every review, good, bad, or as happened the other day, a spam one where obviously people do get targeted, especially on Facebook there. So that ability to get to those in the quickest possible fashion, to take them down if you can do.
All right. If you want to do my presentation, just do it. Just do it.
Anyway, that concludes it. Yeah,
we're going to play a little game. We're going to play a little game of what are you selling? Because it ain't houses, okay? It ain't houses. First of all, I'd just like to introduce myself to anybody that doesn't know me. I'm this little one over here, hidden behind the massive ego that is Simon Whale, talking across me like he just did for the past 5 minutes.
Yeah. And can we just talk about the elephant or the whale in the room here? That me talking about reputation is quite unique in its own right.
Well, I was going to say, I think that's the challenge of all of this. You have the biggest reputation in the industry, both good and bad. Yeah. So it's worth talking about. And take it from me, I have to manage his reputation every day. Okay, so agents, in terms of what they're doing, and this slide is a little bit tongue-in-cheek. They're obviously offering professional photos, but you'd be amazed at how many agents I see advertising that as a USP these days. Yeah. Videos are no longer optional. It's something that you have to do. The pandemic made that absolutely a mainstay of a estate agency. Yeah. Social media isn't optional.
Big shout out to Property Video Solutions, of course, there.
Big shout out to people like Property Video Solutions and all the agents that are producing fantastic content out there. And whether that content's a property tour, whether it's just a bit of information, whether you're just getting your face on screen and engaging with that audience, is all important. It all goes to the same place. Yeah. And because of that, social media is that platform that you have to be using, and you have to be using that constantly. And I would argue these days, if I came to an agency, looked, and they didn't have any reviews at all, I'd say something sus about that agency. I'm not using them. Similarly, if they're not doing social media, then I would worry about that as well, because it's a channel that you'd want an active agent to have open.
Do you remember, David, in the old days where the corporates and the big boys they didn't go down the social media route because they were terrified, it seemed, of obviously what happens if they got that inevitable negative feedback when it happened. But actually what it made them do was seem more distant, less transparent. And so we're way beyond that conversation now, aren't we? By the way, just before we, of course, you haven't got free market appraisal on here, which I'm surprised at.
Well, the free market appraisal, I think,
or networked offices if you're a multi-office agent as well. That's a great one.
But I think the truth is that this fourth category over here, sales progression,
Yeah.
When you talk to particularly agents that are selling, and this obviously doesn't apply to lettings necessarily, but they always used to claim it's what they do that makes them special. It's that sales progression. It's that hands-on secret sauce that makes it so good. But that can be a distant memory at the end of a very bitter transaction. And in fact, the stats speak for themselves in terms of the number of people that re-instruct the agent that they bought from.
Yeah.
Is particularly low. That's something that Spectre back in the day, when Hello Again was a separate brand, they always used to talk about, and it's absolutely true. So I'm not quite sure that today's modern agent can rely on all of these four things. But the one thing that we all have in common here is that we've spent thousands of pounds and hundreds of hours trying to convince the public that we are the good guys. You can see here on the left of this slide, you've got just a few, and these are just taken from the Relocation Agent Network, to be honest, because I had the slides ready already. But they are just, I mean, that network does some fantastic community work, and those agents do some fantastic community work. But all agents out there that I know of, all good agents, even people like Ricky Taylor, are doing amazing community work out there. They are sleeping out in the middle of the street to raise money for homeless charities. They are having winter coat appeals. They are very often a drop-off point for local food banks. You don't see your local solicitors doing that. You will not see your local accountants doing it, because nobody feels the need to be as good as we are in order to also convince that public that we can be trusted. But yes, sales progression.
And we make that point, David, all the time. You know, that one of the reasons I sit on the board at Agents Giving is that, you know, agents all over the country are genuinely doing more than anyone else I can see in their local communities. And that whole aim of Agents Giving is to bring that together to, and I'm going to ruin, I know, because you're going to shout at me, but things like the way that the public and especially the press critique agents so commonly and so lazily.
So I'm going to go ahead and give us all the benefit of the doubt and say that we'd all be doing this even if the press were not hounding us in the way that they and trying to lambast us in the way that they do. I think the agents, and particularly the ones that I get a privilege to talk to every day, are amongst the best human beings I've ever met, and I think that they are linchpins of their entire community, and therefore they understand the importance of doing this work, whether or not it is financially rewarded at the end of the day. But the real truth is that veracity index that is published every year tells you who you should trust. And believe it or not, the results of that veracity index tell you that who comes to the top: nurses, doctors, and newsreaders. And obviously, bit tongue-in-cheek again, but here are three examples, and really high-profile examples, of nurses, doctors, and newsreaders when it all goes wrong. So I think what we're able to sort of consistently prove is that members of the public can have an opinion. Those veracity indexes, in my opinion, the way the questions are framed and the way that they're asked, I don't think gives a representative sample. And I think that Simon Ledbetter last week, talking about his questionnaire, which was to people who just transacted with an agent, of whether or not they trust them, I think was much more indicative of where estate agents should come on the whole thing. Because, you know, these nurses, doctors, newsreaders, they've got a tremendous amount of responsibility in their hands, probably far more than we ever will do, because they have the ability to literally affect life or death situations, and yet consistently they seem to come out on top. You know who you don't trust, and consistently we in this country particularly, but I think this is now the world over. This is the world this year in which we've got, I think, 50 general elections going on in various different countries, some of them more democratic than others. Shout out to Mr. Putin. But you know who you don't trust, and the reason that you don't trust them is they make promises that they don't follow through on. And here are just a few examples. Now, I'd like to talk about my best friend. You can tell we're best friends because here we are smiling together.
Yeah.
And I called Chris because I saw him present very impressively at the ICG. They had a speed dating for agents and suppliers down in Birmingham earlier this year. And he did a most wonderful presentation, and it was very sort of high tech. He had different slides and different animations showing various different things. And I saw one of his slides and I said to him, Chris, you know how we're best friends, right? Can you please share with me one of your slides? Because I'd like to work it into this presentation of mine. And he said, Mintzy, no problem at all. Sending it over now. And this is what he sent me. This is Chris Watkins.
Here's what I drew earlier. Yeah.
This is Chris Watkins, very high tech. What he calls the trust mountain, which I've had to superimpose on a mountain just so that you get the overall
Make the point. Yeah.
Yeah. So in very, very simple terms, Chris talks about this an awful lot, but for an agent to really sort of gain some traction with a member of the public, first of all, you've got to take an interest in them. That's right at the bottom of his mountain. That's the first step. You've then got to work up to taking interest in you.
Yeah.
And if they get to know you, hopefully they're going to like you. Yeah. And if they like you or love you, then they're going to trust you. So trust is very much at the top of the pinnacle. But the final bit, obviously, right at the top of that mountain is listings. So if they know, like, and trust you, they're going to instruct you. A little comment from a member of the public over here. Imagining climbing Whale Mountain.
There you go. That can't be rushed though, as well, can it? Is the critical thing about trust.
I think that's it's a slow burner building up trust in that way, because like you say, you've got to, I think there was another lecture that day, and I think Mark Burgess was there from Lifecycle talking about, and I'm getting the ratios mixed up here now, but he was talking about something like 7-11-4, which is you've got to come up in 7 different places and 7 different mediums. You've got to have 11 touch points with them, and you've got to bump into them at 4 separate places as well. So until a member of the public sort of really goes, hang on, I know what Simon does. This is what he does. This is why I trust him. And this is why I'm going to instruct him on my house.
But you see this week in, week out. I know you sit on those groups with the likes of the fantastic, obviously, Michelle Gallagher, and loads of those agents that do so much following Chris's advice, the Property Video Solutions advice. Jim's a great example up in Fife, where, you go out, whether you're out in the street or you're turning up to appraisal and they feel like they already know you. That's the power of that's the sweet spot, isn't it? Once you've got that, you can become that Tom Panos attraction agent, which is game changing, isn't it?
It's really, when it happens and when that clicks, it's the most amazing moment, because 2 things happen. Number one, if you're an egomaniac like me, you suddenly get very flattered that people know who you are in your local Tesco's. But I promise you, it works. I mean, when I say it works, it means that when people think about selling a house locally, they may not love me necessarily. They may not always instruct me, but they will definitely talk to me before putting it on the market with anybody else, because what they know is that I'm trusted by others within their peer group to sell houses in that area, and that's what I'm known for. And if you can get that little cycle going, but as you said, that is an absolute slow burn. So is there a way to fast track this? Well, let's have a look at what reviews say. So a few little statistics over here. 93% of consumers say that online reviews influence their decision making. So that is to say that they're always going to look at, the majority of people will always look at reviews before they make a decision. And 40% of customers say that negative reviews stop them from purchasing. So don't think that those negative reviews are just going to be buried under the pile of positive reviews, because if you're anything like me, and I'm a very cynical individual, I may, I'm known for being cynical, but I may, if I'm unkind, want to delve into that whole review pile and actually order it. I want to have a look at what's right. We all know what David's like on his best day, because his mum and his gran have left him an absolutely great review. But I want to know what David looks like on his worst day. So can I see a couple of those 1-star reviews? And so I think that's important. Are those reviews enough to stop somebody from instructing you? Well, 40% of consumers would say that it is. And I think that's a significant enough number for us to start to worry about it.
Massive.
96%, and this is the really interesting thing, 96% of consumers read the business's responses to the reviews, whether they are negative or positive. And this is the bit which is a real game changer, because if, like me over the years, you have tried to use responses to reviews to educate that particular person that left you a bad review, and to get into a contentious sort of fight and say, well, you instructed us to do X, Y, and Z, and we delivered on X, Y, and Z, and it was only because of this and that. It doesn't make you look very good. No. It doesn't make you look very good at all. You should be magnanimous. You should be thanking people for their feedback. And I think that flavor that you give people in the way that you deal with your feedback on your worst day is actually how you're judged by a lot of the public, because that gives a tone to your business. It really, really does.
Yeah, no, I get that entirely.
So where? Tell me, could you pick up some hints on this? There is a copy of our reputation management guide for estate agents, which people can download. That's available to everybody. But we're going to go through a few things that you can actively do, and you can take these tips away today. Never speak to us again. Just implement them yourselves if you want to. But this is where it is. So top 10 tips. Monitor your online presence. And I don't mean just check into Facebook every couple of days and see if you've got any alerts. We're talking about you need to be watching like a hawk those reviews coming in. Because as Christian said, at the time when he was fighting his whole very vindictive negative reviews spate, time is money in that respect, and you need to jump on it as soon as you possibly can. And monitoring your especially if you've got reviews on Facebook, you've got them on Google, you might have them on Trustpilot, you might have them on All Agents, wherever you've got them. It's a full-time job keeping on top of it. Luckily, everybody, there is a platform that auto manages this for you and will let you know the minute a negative or a positive review comes in, and that you can trust us to do at View Agents. You will get an alert telling you whether you've got a negative review that needs responding to, and I think that's very important. You can't leave that languishing. Every second counts. When you do respond, you've got a bit of a task ahead of you, because it's super, super easy to I love our viewers sometimes. Thanks, Mom. Thanks for tuning in. Love you too. I'll be home soon. Respond promptly and professionally. Now, it's easy to do that when you've got a good review. So I get to say, hey, Simon, thanks. Looking forward to serving you and your family again. Hope you're well and hope the new house is treating you well. That's really nice to be able to do. But can you do that when you've got a negative review alert, and when you've got something that is difficult to answer, when you find yourself feeling like you need to defend yourself? Can you respond consistently every time? Can you get that same tone of voice in there? Now, luckily, there is a platform that does that for you. And View Agents has, as you were saying at the beginning of all of this, that AI response that attempts to put together a response that is professional, that's magnanimous, it's generous as well. It sort of really thanks people, and it gets to the point, and it tells them that if it's genuine feedback that needs to be responded to in that way, you'll say thank you. You'll learn this, use this as a learning opportunity. We will improve and give us a chance to do better. And I think that's really important that people get to hear that. And the irony of it is, I'm telling you to use a human tone of voice. AI does that remarkably and scarily.
And wasn't it stunning when we were looking at this? Because I thought you hear about AI hallucinations and dreaming and things like that, and how would it come back? Would it go strange? in almost every case we've ever seen, it's such a brilliant job. And around the negative ones, I haven't seen one yet that I have that isn't better than the human response to it. I think it goes without saying is we don't post this stuff automatically. You still, as the agent, have the final say of that.
Absolutely. And if you want to add your own personal flourish onto it, or even rewrite it, you can do. But the AI will definitely give you the bare bones of a response that doesn't make you sound like a bitter, spiteful schmuck, which is where a lot of us place ourselves.
Didn't you make the point about that going the whole passive aggressive route as well? That was
well, you do, and I've got to tell you something. And I can speak on behalf of myself and my psychologist and my cardiologist. It ain't worth the stress of getting wound up by negative reviews and trying to educate somebody as to why they're wrong and you're right. Yeah. Let it go. You've got positive bits of business to do. And if you can kill them with love, I mean, I've got to tell you, I hope he's still watching, but Christian Byfield is the absolute epitome of killing negative feedback with love. He genuinely, even as a person, he takes everything with such good grace, and he shines love back and not hate, which I think actually wins a lot more of this battle. So big shout out to the Viking there. Engage with the audience, get involved. Don't just use social media as somewhere that you throw up the occasional review and the occasional post, and don't engage with them and don't ask them questions. I think Megan, if she's still watching, is probably the best example of this. She goes out there and she sort of offers the public information on topics that might be useful to them, but she also asks them for their feedback and for their questions, and she gets a lot of varied feedback. But in there, that's the magic that keeps communities together, because you show yourself to be a very real person there in dealing with all of this. It goes without saying that to get the best reviews, you've got to provide excellent customer service, but you've got to know what excellent customer service looks like. And that's why this benchmarking is so important, because you get to see what the public actually think about your agency and what they think about your closest competitors, and where you can train your staff to provide better customer service. Customer service isn't just smiling until the customer has turned their back. Yeah, that isn't it. It's about being as genuine as you possibly can and doing what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it in the manner that you promised them originally that you were going to do it, but genuinely care. Genuinely care. This is a relationship. We're not transactional for one-offs. This isn't somebody going in to buy a packet of cigarettes. This is hopefully a lifelong relationship that you're building with members of the public.
I remember seeing one of Peter Knight's brilliant academy groups, and there was a speaker there, and they dove into a lot of detail about why people leave businesses. And actually, whereas most businesses' explanation will be, oh, they said it was too expensive or this and that. Actually, the most overwhelming reason given was I didn't feel like they cared about me. So, everyone knows those companies. That's maybe even, you could argue, the biggest prop tech business in our industry, wink, wink, that go on about, telling you how much they care about their clients on the walls and find you happy and all this sort of stuff. Does that feel real? Does that feel, does that come through in the way that you actually deal with people? Because clients and customers spot that insincerity a mile off, don't they? And I think that's the good thing.
They do.
The second thing is, the good news is you're quite rightly focusing on the brilliant agents, some of the brilliant agents, but it's a bit like that old kind of joke where, if you're running away from a crocodile, you just need to be the least slow, because we're looking at an industry and the good guys are obviously out there getting these strong reviews. With these benchmarking tools, all you have to be is better than the majority of your competitors. Let's be honest, most of them have given up the chase in terms of reviews. And we're going to be coming out over the following weeks and months and looking at what those averages are. And if you want to know what your averages are for your own agency against your competitors, we're going to. I think you've already put it out there, David. There's a survey. Fill that in. At the end of that, you could jump on a call with Dominic and one of us and highlight what you're doing well and what you could improve on. And I think that's a really nice angle.
So if you can provide excellent customer service that goes that extra mile, but actually demonstrates that you are human and that you care whether Mrs. Goggins is going to walk back into that agency tomorrow. Let's not forget, right? Half of this reputation thing is not necessarily just what they think of you. It's what they're going to say about you to other people as well, right? So everybody knows somebody, and those people all turn into little mini influencers for you. And if you can let them leave your company with excellent service, I've done that on a couple of occasions recently. I bought a mobile phone recently, which again, normally a very emotionless experience. I went, used to go straight to the network provider, sign up with them, spend an hour on the phone to somebody that's reading me T's and C's, who doesn't really care as long as I sign on the bottom line. But I actually went somewhere local this time, and I was so happy to be able to sort of say to everybody, look, if you're looking to deal with somebody, go to these guys, because this is absolutely important.
Yeah.
Build, and on that point, build those relationships with your community. This is something that people like Jerry Lyons talks about an awful lot. This is something that agencies such as Paramount, such as Base, such as Location, such as all those RAN agents. Richard Taylor was on earlier. He does it very well. Thomas Morris has done it to the death. They've won awards for it. But build those relationships with your communities. Don't just be an island in the middle of your community. Get involved. And it doesn't need to cost you a penny, by the way. Some of the best things that I've ever done for our business were just involved giving a platform to other businesses and other organizations in our communities. There are, and I'm just going to give you a few of them, but there are schools, there are PTAs. There isn't a PTA in the country that will not take a donation from you or look at a way that they can actually get involved and bring more donations in. So work with those PTAs. They're full of really conscientious volunteers that are looking to try and raise money. And there's a lot of noise going on in that charity sector because there's a lot of hungry mouths to feed out there, and there are loads of people that need your help. So if you can be a drop-off point, if you can get involved with your local community, do it. Tell people. People listen to what you say. You've got a channel. Tell people when the next event is at your local school. Tell people when your local theatre club is putting on a production. Tell people when Jimmy down the road is doing a special offer on his fantastic fried chicken. It makes sense. You're there to sell houses, but if you actually build those relationships with your community, it will come back to you. And I promise you this, a lot of those, you go and get yourself a bunch of hairdressers and big them up, because they sit and they talk to people and they have the same conversation. You going anywhere nice on holiday? You got anything booked in? You're taking the kids away? But they will also say, if anybody says, well, actually, I'm not going away on holiday because I've got to sort mum's house out because she recently passed away. Yeah. Those hairdressers will say, have you thought about speaking to David? He's, give you an idea on what mum's house might be worth if you need some advice. So those conversations are real human conversations that happen every day. They have to happen every day. Don't leave yourself out of that conversation.
And the point is, if you're not the first one, really, because they can't go in there then list off a huge long list of other agents, can they? You get those relationships set up with those local businesses, you're in the box seat, aren't you?
Here we go. Christian Byfield, we celebrate 20 years of Base in May, and we have plenty of landlords with us for 15 plus of those. Amazing relationships and stories. Many are making major plans to join us for our Base anniversary, which is quite something to behold. It is something to behold because, again, nobody gets to head down to EDF to celebrate being with them for 3 years of energy. So these are very real businesses that are a very real part of those people's investment strategies. Landlords, you're a major part of their pension. You're a major part of whether or not their kids get to see a bean in the future. Take that role seriously and start to be somebody within your community that pulls people together. It's one of the most privileged things that you can do. It's a great privilege to be able to give platforms to charities and voices to people that don't have the coverage that you do. Go ahead and do it. Do a little good. I promise you, it won't do you any harm. Be transparent. And this goes back to answering your reviews. Don't try and dodge the bullet. Don't try and obfuscate, I think is the word. Don't try and be a politician when it comes to negative feedback that you're getting. Take it on the chin, but deal with it and hold it up to the light of day. Because if you can hold up a mistake that you've made and when actually on this occasion, I'm afraid we did fuck up, but this is how we're going to make it right. And actually our story with you has taught us that we're never going to allow that to happen again. And this is in all assets of, this can be in all areas of your life, being transparent sometimes and just, sincerity being the hardest thing to fake.
Brits love a bit of self-deprecation when you're apologizing, don't they?
But I think that's really, really important. And so I think the way that View Agents will probably help you to do that, as well as that they'll give you a guide, and Dom is particularly good at this, about, choose a tone of voice, choose what it is that you want to do with negative feedback, and we'll get those automatic responses zimming along the same lines for you so that it's always consistent. Be positive. This is a big shout out to my friend Charlie Landon. Be positive, man. Yeah. You have got a voice, you've got a platform, and you've got a role within your community. And your role within the community, particularly if you curate community groups, as I know a lot of agents do, is not to hold a mirror up to all the negative shit that happens in your area. So if you want somewhere to complain about the state of the parking on the high street, or the fact that all the small businesses are disappearing and we're being replaced by supermarkets, that shouldn't be the platform to do it on. You're there to hold a mirror up to all the positive stuff going on in your community, the great schools, the great organizations, the charities, the small businesses that are thriving, the people that go the extra mile, the pharmacy around the corner that delivers to people out of hours when perhaps everybody else has left them. And I think these are things that need to be, and it is your privilege to be able to do it, but be positive. You've got a responsibility to talk positively. And this isn't, a lot of people do market updates. A lot of people provide advice to the community. When you're being positive, you're not necessarily misleading them. Nobody needs for you to tell them lies, but you can choose what you cover. Cover the stuff that is positive, because the negative shit always seems to stick and will drag you down with it. So
there's enough of that out there anyway, isn't it? You be the beacon out there and highlight what's good and going on, and you're going to be.
It's a bad look, as Christian Byfield said. Positive things and positive action and solutions. No one needs or wants to hear you moan, and that's really true. You'd be surprised again. We've all seen this actually in the Facebook forums for all the multitude of estate agency groups that we've got out there. And you can see it on the sort of comments that people leave on Property Industry Eye. When somebody launches something new, when there is something positive going on in the industry, very few people step up to actually say how wonderful that is. But when there's something negative out there, the idiots all seem to be lining up to take a ticket to have their say. Don't be one of those. Be positive. You've got far more to gain from actually paying back in to your communities. And on that note, use social media wisely. Social media, as I think a lot of celebrities are now understanding, I think everybody in the world, Simon, except for you, has understood that social media has a very, very long memory, right? It has a long memory. So if Simon Whale is ever going to be running for Prime Minister in the future, what they're going to be able to pull out are some of it.
It has to be a very different demographic of voting audience, I think, as opposed to what we've got at the moment.
But you use that social media wisely. Don't just shove another house on there. Here's another house. Here's another house. This is to let. This is for sale. Don't just shove market updates on there, but really vary that content as much as possible. Now, a really great place to shout and to use that that social proof is obviously on social media. And a lot of agents will take the text of a review. They'll spend some time on Canva or wherever it is, putting it into a professional looking design and try and sort of get it out there. Now, luckily, there's a platform called View Agents that will take all of your positive reviews and it will automatically produce professionally branded social media assets that allow you to use them on social and deploy them on social media, any platform you wish, by the way, as quickly as possible. I would say in a matter of seconds, you can start to get the positive vibes out there, but continue to put that into your mix. You've got to put a mix of that social proof in there so that it's not just you chatting about what you're trying to sell, and that you actually...
You know, we sit on like all of these consultancy calls with agents. They're often coming to us and asking for feedback about what marketing tools they can do to put out content. Everyone's looking for content. The good news here is that actually it is a virtuous cycle for great agents. They're creating listings, creating happy clients, creating testimonials via reviews and word of mouth. That then is your background noise, isn't it, being shared out, as long as you've got a tool like this to be able to do there, and then it all feeds back to the beginning again, doesn't it? And that's where the best agents, of course, can absolutely clean up.
Don't be a victim. You control the narrative on your own media sites. You are your own publisher. You are the BBC. You get to say what is news and what isn't news on your own social media. At least you've still got there's a little bit of authority still there that you can take, and a little bit of power for yourselves, but really use it to highlight the things that are positive. And if you're not using reviews regularly, now I've seen this time and time again with agents, they will take one positive review, shove it up there, another one, and then they'll forget for a few weeks, and they'll forget for a few weeks. Social media, it's running fast. We're all doing this. What did we read? What did Simon Ledbetter tell us last week? We scroll something ridiculous like 6 miles of social media a day or something.
Yeah, it was the Eiffel Tower or something insane like that.
So therefore, people watching this on social media right now, in 2 weeks' time, we would have gone into the haze of time. We may, if the algorithm's generous to us, pop back up again. Yeah. But if you want somebody to hear this again, repost it again. And again, that goes the same for your reviews. Don't just shoot it out once and then expect it to linger there forever. It ain't going to. So use your social media really wisely. Encourage positive reviews. Now, I can't say this enough. Most agents wait till the end of a transaction to ask for a review. And I can't tell you what a big mistake that is, because are you an agent listening to this who's got to the end of a transaction and said, actually, don't send Mrs. Goggins a review because it ended pretty badly and the solicitors really messed up on this one and it was a bit bitter and she was very upset. So if she leaves us a review, it's likely not to be positive. So unfortunately, you can get to the end of a transaction with somebody where actually their ability to leave you a positive review is very much hindered. But you don't need to be taking somebody's money in order for them to give you positive feedback. And in actual fact, very often the feedback that I've got is that David's advice was wonderful, that David was very polite, that David came and he gave us honest feedback on our property, but we chose not to sell at that time. But that's still a review waiting to happen if you ask for it, because people will, if you ask them, give you some positive feedback, and that's all that it ever needs to be. And you can use that. So we, as agents, we interact with an awful lot of people, tenants, buyers, on viewings. You're going to see a volume of people. You can only ever sell every house once. So for every 5 viewings that you do, there's 4 people walking away. But how have you left those people? Have those people had good service from you? Are they willing to say, actually, it was really positive and easy dealing with Simon Whale and Co. They took after me, they looked after me so well. They got me booked in. I would definitely not hesitate to come back to them. That's a review waiting to happen. So don't just wait till somebody's handing over that cold cash for you to ask for that feedback. And so you can encourage positive reviews at every point. Now, View Agents will make that easy for you because there's a number of different platforms that you can ask for that. There's an SMS that goes out to people. SMS have fantastic open rates compared to
just put that into context. It's 98% from the stats we've got open rate compared to the 19% on email. As we know, as the email inbox gets more and more contested, as AI generates more content there, that text message angle is absolute gold dust. And as I said, it's inbuilt, so that's again great.
And it's easy. So it doesn't involve an awkward conversation with somebody. If somebody came to view a house, why not send them a text message? How did we do? Now, some people might ignore it. They might read it and ignore it. But, for every 10 that you send out, you only need one to leave you a positive review. And then that's fine. And if you do genuinely care about delivering customer service, you'll encourage even the negative reviews to come forward so that you can change what it is that you're doing that people aren't liking. Yeah. There's no point doing what you think is right. You've got to tailor it to the client, and you've got to listen to that feedback. But View Agent will give you a platform to be able to do that on email easily.
We did an interview before we even got involved with View Agents with a Martin & Co franchisee. Again, had been hit by the lettings side of obviously this, with tenants getting. And what his point was brilliant was, first of all, but by getting all these tools, proper tools, automated and set up there, he was able to generate 4 times as many positive reviews. And that realistically is the only way to drown out those negative ones, isn't it? As well as being able to respond properly to the ones that aren't real, I suppose. But
you'd be surprised at how many agents are doing this selectively, and you're limiting yourselves by getting to the end of a transaction and just sending it to the people that are your mates. Don't waste opportunities. For every transaction, there are 2 sides to a transaction. There's a landlord, there's a tenant, there's a buyer, there's a seller. There are a multitude of people that didn't get it. There are solicitors you can ask for feedback. How many times do you transact with somebody in a sale where genuinely the solicitor goes, wow, it's been a pleasure dealing with you, or you've had a really good experience with them. Get them to leave you a review. It doesn't really matter where the reviews come from, as long as the feedback is genuine.
Yeah.
And this is something that I learned far too late in my career. And I've actually got some of my obsessions with my competition documented in the historic entries at Property Industry Eye. Because back in the day of portal juggling, I couldn't go to sleep at night without spewing bile about my competition doing what they did locally. And that, again, on behalf of my cardiologist, I've got to tell you, is really bad for your health, but it's also really bad for the health of your business. It's good to take a healthy interest in what your competition's doing. A View Agent will allow you to benchmark what the public think about you and your competition, because that's really what's important. It's not what you think about the competition. It's not about how you think you compare. It's about what the public think. So take a look at that, but don't let that be the driver behind collecting reviews. Don't let that be the driver behind your business strategy. Don't let it cloud your mind, because you've got far more to gain by networking up with some of the best agents in the country. And you can do it. Some of them are on this feed now. Christian Byfield, Luke Sinclair, Megan 18. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Even people like John Paul, people like yourselves, me. If you ask us, we will give you our time for free. You don't need to sign up to any mentorship program. We will give you the time for free and give you tips and let you know what is working. Chris Watkins is a great one. If you can catch him on that magical hour when he's on his exercise bike in the morning, sometimes it happens. But you can ask questions. You've got resources. There are people that you can work with. You're not alone. Don't obsess over your competition. Get some positive networking going on that can actually sort of influence where you take your business. I'm going to end on this note. Review diversity. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Use a multitude of different platforms. Today, doing business with people is about doing business where it suits them, not where it suits you. And if where it suits them is Facebook, if where it suits them is Google, then give them the option to leave you a review there. Don't be scared about it. If you're scared that you're going to miss one or that you're not going to manage it, well, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you there's a platform that allows you to collate all your reviews in one place and manage them so that you can offer that diversity and get reviews in every single location, so that really when the public look at it, you're very evenly balanced. And View Agents, I'm happy to say, allows you to do that, and it allows you to respond to those reviews on every platform as well. Christian says there's nothing better on those off days when things go wrong for you or your team, reading 5, 10, 20 glowing rave reviews. It reminds you of the wins and the joys you brought. You're not going to have good days every day, but you will get some good reviews that will remind you.
That's a fantastic point from Christian there, because actually, again, the gentleman from Martin & Co. flagged the fact that for him, one of the most important factors was from a training and development point of view. So being able to celebrate excellence, to be able to look at best practice, to be able to shout about the members of his team who are being tagged again with the platform. There's very few platforms that actually allow you to tag individual members, and I think that again is such a great one that to be able to do, as you said, when you're having a tough time, to know that actually it's an aberration and the trend is that you do really good stuff. Brilliant.
And I think that's important as well. So if you're using a platform like View Agents that will allow you to break it down by team member, you can also spot, you can highlight heroes of the week if you want to in your morning meeting. You can say, look, this is Carla. She's had 10 reviews this week. But it will also allow you to find out why Martin's not asking for reviews, or what's going wrong that makes him feel that he's embarrassed to do it. Is there any training we can give? You can only train really what you can monitor and manage, and View Agents will allow you to do that, which is, I think, super important. And that's pretty much all we've got time for today. But I mean, you can download a copy of that reputation guide really simply. Just simply go to members.kerfuffle.com/reputation, or use this QR code over here, and that's it.
I think that's brilliant, David. I think it genuinely, and it made me actually realise how much I love you. Obviously, when I looked at that negotiator conference, I think the key thing from our point of view is we're really, really keen to understand this area. We've obviously been in the B2B space now for a few years now, and we think we're delivering real value there for our suppliers in terms of giving transparency. I think from our point of view, we want your input. This is ultimately, we want you to help guide us, give us ideas as to where we're going forwards. And we want to thank everybody, obviously, on that basis. So look, the launch offer for us from this View Agents point of view for today, I can probably be persuaded to hold it for tomorrow as well, is dealing with one of the biggest issues that Kerfuffle's here for anyway, that independent agents hate having their hat nailed on because they don't get the best deals that the corporates do. So look, Kerfuffle, that's what we do here anyway. And Kerfuffle members get this kind of magic on a subscription basis. But for today, as I said, probably today and tomorrow only, we're going to give essentially the annual corporate rate, the lowest possible rate you can get guaranteed there, which is going to be £120 a year per office, or it breaks down obviously to £10 per month there. And what we're also going to do, bearing in mind, again, some of those sneaky prop tech companies, is we're going to fix that price for anyone that does sign up on the course of this for 4 years. So no massive 20% price increases, hooking people in at the start and then whacking that up. We want this to be an ongoing and long-term relationship. So that's the key thing. Secondly, agents always complain that they're not listened to, don't they? That, they have no skin in the game, no stake in the way that the product develops forward. So anybody that's interested, please drop us a line and we will happily add you to what we're going to call our agent advisory board, where we're going to sit down, share what our plans are, get feedback from you about the way you want to see this develop. So very much we want you to be part of this going forwards. And then lastly, as we just highlighted before, if you can just share it again, that's fantastic. What we're going to do is we want people to give us the feedback on what they're doing with reviews at the moment, where their frustrations lie. So if you'll fill this survey in and please share it out through your networks. That's a really important part with us. We'll obviously share those anonymized stats and everything back in the white paper that we do off the back of it. And crucially, at the end of that survey, if you want to then book in what Dominic will be able to take you through in the View Agents team is to take you through, again, your own specific audit in terms of what you're doing well in reviews, where you can improve, and crucially showing how you compare up against the competition as well. So I think that's what we'd like to get out there. We're going to be having these reputation matters. I think, what would you say? We're going to start with every fortnight, David, weren't we? So
I think so. Yeah, I think we'll concentrate, because I think there's so much more to reputation than just getting that right. But we've done the basics today. Yeah. But every week we'll give you examples of what agents can be doing, but also what agents are doing that work. So real life examples that seem to be paying off for different agents, and we'll be talking to some of those agents as well. So yeah, that's important.
Cool. Well, look, lovely to get your feedback on this today. I feel fully sated there. And look at that. We've hit the hour on the nose. Who would have thought that you and I could actually keep to a schedule? That's pretty much unprecedented.
The Kerfuffle Podcast, brought to you by View Agents. Do you know what? We could do this every week. We could get a new sponsor on. I mean, if there's anything somebody wants to plug, let us know. We're commercially interested.
Yeah. We don't live in a commercial vacuum. That's not yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. See you next week.
Cheers.